Boz, always good to see you. But Wes, what's going on, brother? Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, of course. Pleasure to be here. This is amazing.
The pleasure's all on our side. Trust me on that one. But give everybody who's watching or listening a little background. Who are you? Where are you from? How do you earn a living?
Oh, I still don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. Figuring that out. But my name is Wes Piatt, originally from San Luis Obispo, California. Grew up there, and then we moved up to Gilroy, California, where we're at now in 2013. A lot of stuff happened in between there. Joined the military, became a firefighter, did some wildland stuff, and then got hooked on this CrossFit thing. And it was at my level 2 with Miranda Oldroyd that I asked her, hey, how do I get one of those red shirts? And the rest is history. So turned CrossFit into
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I turned CrossFit into my full-time life at that point. I stopped firefighting, and me and my wife made the leap to just try to do this thing full-time, and it worked out. So we're still here.
You jumped over it a little bit, but when I was, I've known you for years, but I haven't snooped on you on the interwebs as people do every now and then. So I snooped on you a little bit, and
it's called lurking, Pat.
Thank you. Or research. I call it podcast research. But I saw on your affiliate's website that your first CrossFit workout was the Filthy 50s. Who even brought that to your attention? And from what I understand, it didn't go well.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do double unders. So it was just the classic, we were doing CrossFit and I wanted to find the hardest workout I could, right? So you're scrolling through all the workouts and Filthy 50 looks like this on paper, so it must be good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Long, crazy, chipping through. And so I did that workout, got to double unders, couldn't do double unders. And so I decided I was going to do that workout every day until I got double unders. And I think I just...
Oh, wow.
Probably made my calves and the bottom of my feet way more sore than necessary and whipped myself 5,000 times. But I got double unders from that workout over the couple weeks that I did it every single day.
Well, there you go. Podcast over, everybody. If you want a new skill, just do it every day until you can't fail.
That's exactly what I had in my head.
Secret.
That's exactly because people were like, double unders took me years, but Wes did it. I'm going to just do it for 2 weeks and then I'll get it.
Yeah. Cured.
Well, it's like what we talk about the level ones, like don't go out and just train a bunch of people, right? Like ruin your friends and your family first. I started just ruining myself, then I ruined my friends, then I ruined my family, and then I got into actually coaching well. So
awesome. That's great. You got all the beginners, kind of gambits out the way before you started working with the public. That's a smart way to do it.
Yeah, I've got a couple good stories about some friends that still don't do CrossFit to this day, because of some of the stuff that I took them through. So
are they still your friends?
Yeah, they're still friends,
okay,
but it's just a running joke, like, oh, Wes ruined us with CrossFit. So
you got 1 out of 2. You're still friends at least. That's
yeah.
So did you? And I've actually got a buddy that I ruined. Anyway, he's fine. And he went on to have a long, happy, healthy life. But but he was part of my experimentation. You got out of the military, did some firefighting. Went to your level 1, decided that not only did you love CrossFit so much, you might want to get on staff. Were you attending the level 1 just out of a passion and interest to learn more about CrossFit, or were you dead set on opening a gym?
Yeah, no, not at all. I didn't even want to coach. I just was. I grew up playing team sports and surfing and snowboarding and that kind of stuff, and I hated the gym. I never worked out.
Oh, really?
Even during football and baseball, we had weight training. We had to. I would find ways to get out of it. I'd go to my coach and ask if I can go watch film because I wanted to see how this offense was lining up or whatever. And, and so I'd go watch film. And the way that I was okay at the sports I played was just natural talent, number one. And then it was my ability to educate myself on what was going on. And I was such a smaller athlete that being in a gym was just not my realm. I mean, everybody's in there putting up 2 plates and I could barely do 25s on the side, and it was just embarrassing. So, I stayed out of the gym for a very long time. And then when I found CrossFit on my last deployment in the military, it felt like I was playing a sport again. And I just fell in love with it, not because I was working out, because it felt like I was playing a sport again and had something to do and work towards. And I wanted to learn more about it so that I could be better. I didn't want to coach or anything like that because my mind was already set on becoming a firefighter when I got out of the military, and that was going to be my path. And so it was all for me 100%. But once I took my level 1, it was like, okay, well, what's next? And what's next? And that was obviously the level 2, which is when I kind of was like going through it. And on day 2, I was like, hey, how do you guys get those shirts? Like, what is it? How did you get where you are? Because I just want the knowledge that you have. And even at that point, it wasn't about opening a gym. It was just having that knowledge and that ability to help. And I saw it more in terms of, being a firefighter and being at the fire station and being able to help people there that were working out or whatever, or maybe at my home affiliate with Bill Grumler. He was my original he wasn't my fire captain, but he was actually just down the street from us. He was at the station just down the street. So we would go on mutual aid calls all the time. And then he was obviously my boss at the gym. And so being able to help him out at the gym too was kind of a driving force for it. But yeah.
Not a bad mentor at all to have right there.
Yeah. So what flipped the switch for you, Wes? Where and when did you kind of make the decision that, putting forward this information to other people was going to be more important to you than your own development? Because I know that like I can't pretend to know you that well, but I've known you for a long time. And I know that in conversation, what's really important to you is influencing the culture of your community, giving back, things like that. So at what point in your progression there did you kind of flip the switch and start looking externally?
It was probably the first time that Bill asked me if I wanted to coach. I was terrified of public speaking, and I still am a pretty big introvert, but it was really weird because I coached my first class and all of a sudden I had all this energy. I was talking to people and I had no problem starting a conversation or continuing the conversation, which is always the awkward part, right? And it was like, after I coached that first class, I'm like, wow, that was weird. Like I've never been able to carry on a conversation like that with somebody in my entire life. And that really kind of sparked my interest of like, wow, I guess that I can do something like this. Like, cause I just thought it was off the table. Like, hey, I'm not a good public speaker. I don't want to be around people. I don't like to be the center of attention at all, but it was just different. It was just this passion that was inside of me that I didn't know why or what was going on. It was just like, well, I got to keep doing this because, the second you get somebody to do something that they didn't think they can do, and it was because of something that you said to them, and then they turn around and they give that back, that was because of you. And I'm like, oh God, it was. Oh, okay. I guess, like, sweet, and then you kind of feed off of that and you want to just continue to make the next person better and the next person better and the next person better. And that's kind of like what filled me up and kept me going down that path for sure.
So then when did you draw the conclusion that the natural extension of that was, okay, I've started coaching, I kind of got put into this role. It really took more than you thought it would. Where do you start moving towards, I think I want to have my own facility. I think I want to be, the guy in charge.
Oh man, I still don't want to be the guy in charge. Let's say that.
Smart man.
Yeah. But it was actually when me and my wife were having some tough conversations about where we wanted to plant our family. And I didn't want to leave San Luis Obispo. I mean, it's, in my opinion, the best city in the entire state of California.
It's beautiful out there. Yeah.
It's got everything. There's surfing, there's hiking, there's a small community feel, but there's still a nightlife. Anyways, it's just amazing. And so I jokingly told her that the only way I would ever move to Gilroy is if we opened up a CrossFit gym. And I said that thinking like Gilroy at that time was this farm town. It wasn't the Silicon Valley hub that it is now. And I was like, nobody's going to do CrossFit in Gilroy, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to keep working at Bill's gym, keep being a firefighter, keep doing that. And that's going to be our life, and we came up here one weekend just to hang out with some friends. And we were, talking about it over some beers. And we mentioned, hey, Wes said he wouldn't come up here unless we opened up a CrossFit gym. And 6 months later, us and that other couple opened up the CrossFit gym. Yeah. So it was
Awesome.
literally just, it was like Meg calling my bluff is what made it happen.
That's great.
Yeah.
And when was that?
That was 2013.
2013. Okay. And you've been in the same place ever since?
We just moved locations actually, but 2 years ago we came into our second location, but same spot in Gilroy. Yeah.
And so starting a gym obviously was a huge leap of faith. At that point in time, were you dual-hatted still with the firefighting on the side? And, what was the evolution of that?
Yeah, so the idea was never to give up firefighting. I was just driving down and doing my shifts, about a 2.5 hour drive. It's not too bad. And it's actually kind of nice with a podcast or a book or on tape or something, And so you drive down there and do your shifts and come back up for, a few days off and work at the gym and then go back down and do it again. And there was one specific day where we got a call and I was in the back, and we were going to this one area it's a sketchy reception there. And so the job of me in the back is to pull out the maps. Just in case things go down, I can help navigate where we need to go. And that has never happened. Like, it's always been totally fine. And for some reason that day, I had my headset on, I'm in the back. I didn't pull out the maps because I was thinking about some other stuff we had to do at the gym up here with some paperwork and taxes or whatever. And my captain just yelled at me. He's like, "Hey, what are we doing? Where are we going?" And that's right there in that moment when I was like, "Whoa, I can't do this part-time. I got to figure this out." And so I came back home and I talked to my wife, Megan, about it. And I was like, I got to choose like one or the other. And I love them both a lot. And then we kind of sat down and weighed the pros and cons, and we didn't have a mortgage at the time. We didn't have any kids. There was no car payments. There was nothing. And I was still young. I was 25, and it was like, let's take a leap of faith. Let's do it. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? It just falls on its face like most small businesses do in the first 5 years. Right. I'll go back to working on the old box and helping get people up off the ground and taking their blood pressure again. Like it'll be fine. But it didn't. It took off, and it's still surviving today, even after a pandemic. So.
Yeah,
good for you.
The pandemic too. I mean, while this is still relevant and happening, we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on that. So, I'm up here in Washington State, and we're under some degree of continued lockdown that supposedly is going to end at the end of this month. They're saying like June 30th. There'll be some steps back to normalcy. I'm not quite sure what that means, but where you are right now in California, running a business where people want to come in and work out, what is COVID currently doing to affect your business? And then we can touch on, what you had to do to survive the last months or year plus. But what's the current situation in California?
Well, currently we're open. We're allowed to work out indoors with social distancing protocols intact. Masks have to be worn while we're inside and working out. Temperatures have to be taken at the door. Obviously all the sanitization processes that we're doing after and before every single workout are all still in place. And there's actually a running joke at our gym that the gym finally got as clean as Wes wants it to be. It just took a pandemic for it to happen. So I'm known as like the OCD crazy guy. Like if the dumbbells aren't perfect, like we got an issue. So yeah, so that's where we're at now. But they said on the 15th, apparently COVID stops and we get to take off the masks. And so we're going to kind of slowly scaffold it down where we'll start by taking off the mask, but keeping the boxes that everybody's kind of in, keep the social distancing kind of stuff going. And then slowly just kind of tear it down from there. We'll get back to normal, I guess, in a couple of months probably.
So as we record this, I don't know when it will be posted, but today is the 2nd. So supposedly on the 15th is when that's going to happen. So just a couple weeks. So that's great. I mean, there's light at the end of the tunnel that seems very close given how long this has been going on. Give me a sense of the darkest times, the worst part of the close down, the roughest part of trying to survive, and then how did you figure out a way to still bring CrossFit to your members and pay the bills?
I didn't figure out a way. My coaches figured out a way. My staff did. My wife did. I mean, the community of members and coaches that we have here is what kept this place alive, not myself. That's for sure. I didn't even have to say anything. They were already working on Zoom classes, and this is what we got to do for at-home memberships. Let's rent out the equipment, or not rent out, just give out the equipment, and how's that going to look and everything. And I turned around, and there's spreadsheets that are made, and so-and-so's already got so-and-so's class. And it's just, I'm just blessed to have the people that I do on this staff for sure. So I'm not going to say that it wasn't, I didn't sit back and just go, okay, well, I'll take a few months off. It wasn't that at all. And in fact, I think all of us as coaches probably worked harder over the last year than we have in the last 8 years that we've been open, for sure. And part of that was just to make sure that the members who did stick with us, that there wasn't a moment in their day where they questioned if they should still be paying that bill. You know what I mean? I wanted them to be like, yeah, this is no brainer. We're getting more value now than we even were before. So this is great. So yeah, there was definitely some pretty tough times. I mean, I remember I called up Boz at one point during it, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do right now. This is insane, and called up a couple of other guys I really look up to. And I think like where the meat of the down, I guess, when I was in the deepest, darkest valley was probably when they told us that we could open, and we all got real, so we had the original shutdown. Then they told us that we can open, and we're all excited. We get everything together. Me and my wife didn't even barely sleep to get everything going. Got back in the gym, ran 2 classes, and 24 hours later, they shut us down again.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
at that moment
that's
is where I just lost it, where I'm like, this is, and obviously there's somebody's running around with a chicken with their head cut off. Nobody's making, informed decisions here, and you're putting my life in jeopardy. And then you start going through all the stuff of like, why'd you quit firefighting? You could have just been doing that right now. And, and all the personal choices that you've made. And every day there's a cancellation request coming in from a member. And every day there's drama with the Black Lives Matter stuff and the George Floyd and then the CrossFit stuff and then the shutdowns. And then it was just like 9 rounds of Evander Holyfield taking me to town.
Yeah, it was a rough time. I want to stop for a second there and I dig in on something you said there, which I think is really interesting. You mentioned that you didn't do it, and I believe half of that. I mean, I get it that you have a lot of support around you, and you've got obviously a lot of great people that are willing to fight the good fight to keep you in the game. But kind of 2 things there. Number 1, I don't think that people attract quality folks around them by mistake. I don't think that happens very often. And if you do, they won't last. If you are not cultivating that type of relationship, people won't stick around. So number 1, I'm just kind of curious how you put that out there. How is it that you attract these people that are so willing to put in the time? And then at the same time, how do you kind of give them the ownership so that they can make some of these decisions even without you having to, do it from the top down? They've already taken action and they feel that they can do that because it's in the best interest of the organization. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, to answer your first question, I have no idea why people come here and why they want to work for me. It still boggles my mind.
Wes, I'm telling you now, you like, all jokes aside, it's very obvious to me why that is. I mean, you're obviously passionate. You care about the outcome of everybody around you. You're deeply invested in the success of everybody that steps through the door, all of that stuff, members and staff included. So that is no mistake. So let's just get that off the table right now. You can quit denying it. You're a great guy, and it's no question of why people choose to stick around. But is it something conscious that you do to
do you have
allow
a special
people
screening process?
Well, no. I mean, like I think this is something a lot of affiliates struggle with, is that they have employees and they fall either on kind of one end of the spectrum. They give them so much direct instruction on what they expect from that employee that the employee is kind of afraid to step outside of that and suggest new things and maybe even help the business in ways that were not really intended. And then you have the other end where they don't get enough direction and they feel like they don't have any guardrails and they're kind of freewheeling it, and then they don't know what their best step is professionally. So it seems like you've got a pretty good sweet spot there. Is that something you've actively cultivated?
I would like to relate it back to my time in the military and being an enlisted military member, and so like being just one of the guys. And it was always just, who was the hardest worker when we were working, and that was the guy that you followed. And so I like that idea of like, I just lead by example as much as I possibly can. It's, as long as I'm doing the things I know I would want them to do, I hope that they're watching and they follow along and do that. But then also, in the onboarding process with any one of our coaches, they go through a pretty extensive internship that we have. And during that internship, I'm constantly striving to let them know that we are a team and that I'm not their leader. I am one of them, and that we all give each other feedback and we all work to keep this place going. And we all do everything we can to, if you got to cover a shift, like you should be jumping at the ability to help somebody when they need it most so that they can help you in the future. And, I think it's just having that, like, what I say is not the end. It's not, sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about, or sometimes I don't know the answer. And one of my other coaches will probably know that. And so I take that back to even like the level 1 experience, like with you guys, where when you're a red shirt, yes, there is definitely a ladder of, who's in charge and who's the lowest on the totem pole. But we all just do what we need to do to get the job done. And if you see something that needs to get done, you just go do it. And that's part of the process of that internship, is constantly striving to if they don't have that mindset, give it to them, hopefully, and let them know that this is the way we operate here, or to really be looking for that within people. And if I see them walk by something and they look at it and they don't pick it up, I'll call them on it right then and there. Like, hey, why didn't you pick that thing up? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And then it's just a quick, like, we don't do that here. we pick that thing up, we put it back, we do what we're supposed to do, even if we're working or we're not. And so that weeds out people pretty easily that don't want to do that kind of stuff. And
I think
Pat's
certain
favorite
behaviors.
Phrase that it's not my job.
Have the new guy do it.
That's somebody else's job.
No.
I think certain behaviors are contagious, right? Be it good behavior or bad behavior is contagious, and if you are creating that environment, that's hopefully helps it in a contagious good way. But I also, getting back to what Boz said, I don't think that's enough, and I don't think it happens by accident. And this is probably a topic that is quite fascinating to gym owners all around the world. Who doesn't want an amazing staff? I mean, everything about your gym would be better with a more competent, capable, talented staff. So you mentioned that you do have an internship process or program. What does that look like? Did you create it? How long does it last? What's the internship all about if somebody was to want to become a trainer at your gym?
Yeah, we call it 1296 program. It's something I came up with. And it just takes them slowly through every aspect of coaching the same way we would take somebody slowly through every aspect of the air squat. Like, we're not going to, show them all the points of performance and say, okay, go for it. We're going to talk about stance and setup, and then midline, and then hips back and down. Oh no, that wasn't right. So let's stay on this for a while until we can fix it. And we do the same thing with the internship program, where we have a very, again, I'm OCD and I like everything to kind of follow a plan. And so we have a plan for every single class that we do. And the structure of the class is always the same, but the warm-ups and the workouts are always different. And so the first thing we want to see that they can do is we have a dynamic warm-up we do every day, where everybody just gets in a circle and they're all just kind of talking to each other, and we move our arms in circles and stuff. And they have to coach that first. And we're looking for very specific things. Like, did you take the time to learn the damn specific or dynamic warm-up? Like, can you do it? Can you stay on pace? Do you it's a very simple thing. You know what I mean? It lasts 6 minutes. Did you go over? Did you go under? Were you able to keep the conversation going? And we're really just looking for presence and attitude and the buy-in from the coach at that point. And I can usually tell in that first dynamic warm-up if they're going to make it through the process or not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because I'm sure you guys would agree that the intangible stuff is what we're always looking for, right? The ability for somebody to start a conversation with somebody, keep it going, have that amazing energy that people kind of gravitate towards. I mean, everything that you guys have, right? Like, I remember coming to San Francisco CrossFit. I don't remember if remember this, Boz, a long time ago, and your energy during one of those classes was just absolutely infectious. It was insane, and it was like, I want to drive up to San Francisco every single day just to have this guy coach me because of that energy. And that's really what you're looking for in that first few hours of them doing that dynamic. Everything else I can teach them. I can teach them how to see faults, how to correct them, the things to say, where to put your hand, but I can't teach you to care. I can't teach you to really, truly invest into people. And so that's the first part of it. They go the dynamic, and then we have a few hours of them doing the dynamic and then the whiteboard discussion. So are they able to follow instructions on how to say it? Is everybody getting the correct stimulus and understanding of what the workout should entail and how they should be going about it? Did they answer questions correctly? All those kinds of things. And then after that, they do the dynamic, the whiteboard, and then the general warm-up. Before that, we teach them about lesson planning, and we teach them about how to create good general warm-ups and those types of things. And so we want to see, what does their warm-up look like? Did they nail it, for the stimulus for after on the workout? Was it too much for the timeline? All that kind of stuff. How was their group management? They put people on lines, they go in a circle, all the stuff that we go over at the level 1 and the level 2. And then after that, we have a sit down with them where we basically just go over those last few hours that they did of the dynamic, the whiteboard, and the general warm up. And we either say, hey, let's go back through a couple of these spots. I think there's some things that we need to work on. Or we say, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. Or we say, hey, it's time to move on to the next phase. And then the next phase is them going into the dynamic, the whiteboard talk, the general warm up, and the specific. But the whole time they have an assistant coach with them helping out and can step in if you get the 30-yard stare and
a little bit of training wheels on the system there.
Exactly, and we can step in at any time. That goes for 9 hours. And then the last 6 is really us just kind of like dialing them in. This is where we go over the process of turning on the lights and turning on the music and taking out the trash. And like, I know that I could leave them here by themselves and they would have no problem. And more importantly, I just want them to feel at the end of our internships, my interns are usually going like, go away. Like I'm good.
Right.
Like I got this, like, and that's really what we're after with it. It's also a really great buy-in. Like if I can't get somebody that can give me 27 hours of their time in a short period of time, then they probably aren't going to be able to coach the amount of classes I want anyways. And so it usually filters people out pretty quick when I just lay it out for them.
Well, I think there's a couple things in there. Number one, you're really setting the groundwork that this is a profession. This isn't something that you're just like a hobbyist forever. And then on the other end of that, you're setting the tone of the culture that's accepted at your gym. It's like we have a high standard for the coach, and anybody who's made it to that position and continues with it is taking it seriously. Like what a great message, not only for the rest of the staff who's all on the same page. I think that's huge, and something that a lot of affiliate owners struggle with, right? Is how do I keep all my coaches kind of on the same track and cohesive? And then to the members too. I mean, what a confidence booster that anybody who's in front of them is top notch. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate goal.
To summarize, it's not a darn accident.
Right.
I mean, that's
clearly
right
not an
there.
accident.
The reason you have capable, competent trainers and staff, you didn't just get lucky as you chatted with them over Starbucks and you're like, I got a good vibe. I got a good vibe about this guy. I think we should hire him. And Boz touched on it as well, I believe, but it's just the professionalism of the space, right? We're not a hobbyist, you're not an enthusiast. This can be a career and a profession rewarding for years and years to feed your family, but that's probably not going to just accidentally fall into your lap. It's very rare that you see something great occur, and then when you peel back the layers, you find out it just randomly happened for no reason whatsoever. It's
just dumb luck.
Totally.
Yeah, and like somebody lecturing at the level 1 or level 2, like or the more talented speakers on staff, they make it look so easy, but what you don't see is all the work behind the scenes. Like anything which appears effortless usually is not, So I think this might have been a good eye-opener for a lot of gym owners who potentially are seeking to get where you are, or maybe have something in place, but it most likely doesn't have the level of detail and progressions and checks and balances that you just said, so that that when you got to the end, there wasn't a stone that was left unturned. And then that not only provides your members with, as Boz said, the trainer that they should have and deserve, but like you said, now that person's got confidence, right? They're like, hey, Wes, I got it, brother. You could take off. The gym's in good hands. And then you can go home and sleep well at night.
Yep. Exactly. There's been multiple times where I would say years ago, you'd leave the gym and you were so nervous about are the lights going to get turned off? Is the door going to get locked? Is, whatever. And I haven't had that in a very long time. That's for sure.
So
that's great.
I've got something, Boz, unless you have, I could take it in a direction here.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to change directions a little bit, but you go.
I wanted to know, this is playing off a question that Boz and I got from somebody who posted it on a previous episode and on a YouTube comment. So their question was, hey, let's say I'm struggling with a movement. The workout of the day is Elizabeth, and we're of course just going to say that Elizabeth is done with squat cleans. And so, my squat clean is a struggle. I'm not good at it. But I'm going to warm up, then I have to hit the workout. It doesn't seem like at my gym there's any time for me to actually practice. Now, you just by your own admission said that you're very structured. Everything has a timeline. It goes to dit. So when a particular member or something the monkey wrench throws out, comes out, how do you flex? How do you adjust as a trainer in this situation where, for example, there's a movement in the workout and you've identified out of the 15 people in the class, there's these 3 that, I didn't realize there would be a bit more attention needed here than I anticipated. How does that fit in and the class doesn't run over and everyone's needs still get met?
Well, I mean, the first part is having a good lesson plan, right? And knowing who's going to be in your class and how to train them. But I think one of the big things that has helped us out a lot is that from the beginning, we've had a gap between our classes on purpose. So,
nice. Okay.
For example, the 5:30 a.m. goes until 6:30, but we don't start the next class until 7. And the purpose of that 30 minutes is for the coach to go grab 1 or 2 people that have some low-hanging fruit and need some help on something and pull them aside and say, hey, remember that cue I was giving you in class? I know we didn't really get it. It didn't really sink in. You got 5 minutes? Can I bring you over here? Can we work on it for a second?
That's so cool.
And then you work on it. And ideally that person not only leaves with the understanding of what it is that you wanted them to do, but you also gave them some homework to do. And then we talk to our coaches about, even after that point, your job as a coach now is to put that reminder in your phone next week to check in with that athlete and to see how it's going, if they need any more help. And so we've purposefully put in gaps between all of our classes to be able to do that exact thing.
That's potentially the best answer that I've heard.
Yeah, that's so great. I love that. And I mean, I just think about, my professional life these days. There's a lot of meetings. Most of those are like on Zoom. Nobody's really excited about that. And oftentimes, they just get booked out. And you go from one to the next, and the mental fatigue of that. And what are we talking about? You're trying to reshift to a different task. Having a little bit of space between that. I mean, that's got to be great to kind of recenter.
Yeah. Coach, go get some water and have a bite of food for a second,
Exactly. Yeah. Or recheck the lesson plan. I think back when I was doing a lot of work with affiliates and coaching full time, there was many a time where I would finish a class and I'm like, man, that didn't go the way I wanted it to, but you wouldn't really have time to reflect on that because it's right into the next. So, if something goes off the rails, you've got a little bit of time to look it over again and get back on track for the next one. That's great.
Yeah, well, you know this better than anyone, Boz. My timeline stuff is not very great. So having that buffer helps a little bit with that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you also deliver to your members exactly that thing that we always talk about in every episode of caring or feeling special, or that every member should leave the class feeling, no member should, let me say it this way, no member should leave the class feeling like, I didn't get any attention today. Nobody said anything to me today. I didn't leave with really, it's like I wasn't there. And so now, what a great just safety net, and takes the pressure off the coach in case there is just that thing that like, I would wish I had 10 more minutes with this person. Well, guess what? Yeah. You do.
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Yeah,
and that's going to make that client feel like $1 million. And that client's going to go share that experience with somebody else, and they're going to be like, well, that doesn't happen where I am. It's like, well, hey, come on over. Come on over.
So let me play the devil's advocate a little bit to that, because I can hear the chorus in the background right now saying, well, if I do that, I don't have enough classes on the schedule, and then my revenue is going to be impacted. And,
right.
You can come up with all these immediate excuses not to employ something like that. So how did you kind of offset the fact that might reduce the total number of classes you could put on the schedule because you have to allocate more time between them?
It starts with not being a good business person. That's number one, I think, is that every decision that I've ever made has been surrounded by the community. Is it going to make the community stronger, or is it going to make the community weaker? And that's an easy, yes or no. Is it going to make us stronger or weaker? And then number two is like, am I really truly making this gym a professional gym? And that's like, I get asked the question a lot from people, what makes your gym different than the gym down the road, or what, the other gym. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's professionalism of the coach. It's making sure that the coach feels like they have the autonomy to be able to be a professional, right? To bring their own personal experiences to the plate. And then that they have that time to work with people and to make them better. And you know how it is. I mean, that was like what got me engaged was helping that person get their first muscle up, or helping that person get their first squat clean, or whatever it is, and seeing them light up. I mean, what are they going to do the second they leave the gym? They're going to go tell all of their friends about it. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to stop talking about it. And so I guess in the back of my head, my business mind was saying, well, our goal is to just take care of our members as best as we possibly can. I don't worry about getting new members. I assume that my members will help make that happen as long as I invest into them and I care about them. And so far that business strategy has worked out really well for us. And so I would say that if somebody is saying that, I won't have enough class, I won't have whatever, I would say, well, are you happy with what your gym is now? Are you happy with the amount of members you have and the way you're able to do it? And if not, It's your business. Like, you get to do what you want with it. Nobody else tells you what to do with it. That's the best thing about owning a CrossFit gym, is that you can literally do whatever you want as long as you're sticking to the methodology and what it is we know that works, right? And constantly varied functional movements, executed at high intensity, give people high fives, tell them you love them, check in on them when they don't show up every week. Like, simple.
Man, you know? Wes, that last like 2 minutes there, that, I mean, you chop that and put that out there. That is like success 101.
Yep.
That was awesome.
And again, I don't know if it's the way to do it business wise. And I had this conversation with somebody just last week where we were talking about all the COVID stuff, and our county now wants us to, you know, ask all of our coaches if they've been vaccinated. We have to send in this form saying yes or no. And that was a real moral struggle. Like, who am I to ask somebody if they have or they haven't been? That's their prerogative. And, you know, and my wife was saying, kind of like, there goes one of my coaches right now. My wife was saying, you know, well, what business wise, what would be the best thing to do? You know, and I hate it when people say that to me, because I don't own a business. That's the way I look. I don't own a business. I have a space where people come in to have the best hour of their day. And that's it. That's what I have. And every decision that I make, I want that to be with them in mind and with my coaches in mind. And so I just want to make sure that this space that we have here is a place where people feel safe. They can't imagine being anywhere else, and they can't wait to get here, you know, and that's it. And every decision that I make is just based off of that. And so,
man,
yeah,
that's
I don't know if that will in the long term be a smart business decision as far as money goes. And you know, me being able to drive a Range Rover or give my coaches $100,000 a year or whatever, but I'm happy with my life. And yeah, I've got some ideas to help the coaches out too in the future. So hopefully we can give them I want to give them $100,000 a year, and I'm happy with the way my life is right now. So
I'll tell you what,
that's some powerful stuff. I love it, Wes. I think that's I on the other end of that, I just really feel like it's so insidious to start viewing the world through the lens of bottom line only, and you know, how can I maximize my, you know, return on this particular investment or whatever it is. And I think a certain level of that pragmatism is necessary. I mean, you have to keep the lights on, you got to pay your coaches. But if that's the primary lens that you've shifted over into making the decisions, I think that's a tough road to go down. And I don't think it ends up the way that most people think it will. So I love everything you just said there. I'll leave it at that.
Right. I mean, because that's the goal, right? I mean, is if you're making most decisions based upon what's best for the member, then ideally that keeps the members showing up, it keeps them happy, keeps them talking about it, keeps your classes full, which therefore helps your revenue, which therefore helps keep your lights on, which pays your trainer, and hopefully that's the wonderful circle that goes round and round. There were so many just nuggets of wisdom there. We could end the podcast there, but we're not going to. We'd be remiss, because there's one topic that I can't let you off the hook with before we chat about it a bit, and that's, you had such an incredible opportunity. You've done so much coaching at your affiliate. Then you've had the experience of running seminars for CrossFit around the world, which is a whole nother level of interaction and experience and lessons learned. But then you had yet another, which is there was a special program to serve a segment of the population that potentially didn't get the love and attention that they deserve from the health and fitness industry that emerged at CrossFit a couple years ago, and you had a lot of time invested in that. What was that program all about, and how long were you a part of it?
Oh, that was, last 2 years, and it was CrossFit Health, basically. So Rory McKernan and one of the trainers that was at CrossFit HQ is what it was known as back then, Jenny, were the ones who actually started it. So they are owed all of the credit for getting that thing going. And they basically just put out a little thing on some local Facebook pages in Scotts Valley and said, I think Rory's tagline was, if you are the last person on earth to step foot into a CrossFit gym, we want you. And it's 100% free. Come on down. And we had 400-pound people showing up. We had 80 and 90-year-olds showing up. We had people with underlying chronic, health issues showing up. It ran the entire gamut, and we got it up to the point where it was over 200 people that are coming in and out of those doors every single day, or Monday through Friday. obviously COVID took a real big hit on that because that population was really affected when it comes to COVID, and they're really nervous about being around people and that kind of stuff with a lot of the chronic illnesses that they had. But that was, I mean, professionally, probably the best thing I've ever done in my entire life, for sure.
I can believe that. And as an outsider looking in, I have to say that I think CrossFit as an organization currently is doing a very nice job, like when I look at social media or Instagram, of having a wide range of people. It's not just somebody with 8-pack abdominals with 400 pounds locked out over the head. Like you're getting a really good sense of basically what you just said. I see a lot of people now on social media that look like the last person that would want to walk into a gym because it's scary or intimidating. And that's not what social media looked like 3 or 5 years ago. It was just the ripped bodies, the booty shorts, the whole 9 yards. And so when you have your trainer, you're going to get involved in this program, and now you've got these people walking in north of 80 years old, who knows the last time they either went from a seated to a standing position on their own, or were on the ground, or somebody walks in over 400 pounds or on a list of medications that you've never heard of. What a I mean, it can be terrifying for a new trainer if somebody who's 35, relatively thin, walks in and goes, I hurt my knee skiing. What should I do for today's workout? They're like, I don't know. Let alone, diabetes, heart disease, transplants. Well, what was the learning curve like? Was it OJT, or were you somehow prepared for this?
Well, luckily I had on-the-job training with being on the level 1 staff for such a long time, and meeting thousands and thousands of people that all have different ranges of health issues or whatever it may be. So, I mean, the lunchtime workouts just before lunchtime at the level 1s, we're doing that. We're running around and hey, you do this and you do that, and oh yeah, your knee. Okay, let's do this instead. Let's do that. And so that was my on-the-job training leading up to that point. And I think that was one of the big reasons why Michelle Moots chose me to come in and be one of the trainers there, was because of that experience. So I owe everything for that to the level 1 staff, and really to Miranda for sticking up for me after my first internship and saying, no, keep them going.
Give him a chance. Give this guy a chance.
It was a disaster for sure. So for me, it wasn't, but we definitely did bring on a few other coaches that weren't part of the level 1 staff, and it was on the job training for them for sure. And you could see that kind of like wide-eyed, like, oh my God, what do I do with this person? And when you just take a step back for a second and take a breath and then think about what it is that they need to do, and just like, what Boz or any of you guys were able to do with like the kipping pull-up, we can break this down into its parts and just work on single parts of it. And there's always a way to modify it. The needs of our Olympic athletes and our grandparents vary by degree and not kind, right? And that is so true. It is insane how true that is, And so, it was easier for me for sure, because I was able to just see like, okay, well, what can you do? Let's do that. That sounds great, And then really it's just motivation for them. You're constantly like, I think I heard Ben Bergeron say it one time, that you want to deposit in people's emotional bank accounts. And that's what it is for that group of people. You're just constantly depositing into their emotional bank account. Like, wow, great job staying back on your heels. Even if they aren't, they're trying to, you know what I mean? Like, great job trying to push your knees out. Like, hey, good job showing up today. Like, great job, like whatever. And it's just constant positive feedback. And you're just trying to create this environment that, like, just like here at our gym, that, they just can't wait to get there, because everybody's so positive and so loving and so caring, that it's not about the workout, it's about the people that are there. Yeah. And that's what keeps them coming and coming and coming.
Two things that really struck me about that program on a personal level. I didn't have a lot of contact with it other than when I was living in California and working at that office. I would pass through there. I was familiar with a lot of the regulars and obviously the coaching staff, but I didn't have a lot of touchstones with it on a day-to-day level. But there's kind of two things that really stuck out to me. The first was that it really highlighted to me that it is possible to learn new things and change at any stage of life. I think that's a lesson that is easy to forget and sometimes is overlooked. So that was huge, just for me. And then the second thing was you guys had a goals and accomplishments board that was up on the side there, and members could come in and write their goals or things that they could do that they couldn't do previously. And I remember one that stood out to me the most was, I'm sure you got dozens of these, but I think it was a couple, and they were considering, older couple, they were considering selling their house because they could no longer get to the second story. And that had been reversed. Now they could go up and down the stairs, no big deal. Turns out we don't have to move. And that just blew me away. That's, that is, I don't even know what to say about that. It's giving me chills right now just thinking about that. Like the power of influence that you have to be able to give somebody that back in their life. I mean, that's enormous, you know?
Yeah, John mentioned that every day when he would show up. Hey, I got up and down the stairs today again. It was awesome. Thank you. And go to work out. And so, it's pretty amazing stuff. Like we're running a health class here too. That kind of broke off when we stopped that program and tried to implement it into a few local gyms to see how would it fare within the regular affiliate community. Could we teach coaches how to do this? And could we get those people to show up knowing now, number one, they have to pay for it. And number two, they're going to be going to a gym where there's a lot of other classes going on and other types of people. So does that, I guess, environment bode well for those people to be in? And so far, it's been the 3 gyms that we've implemented it in. It's been thriving. It's been doing really well. So hopefully we can keep it going.
Would you have any advice to a trainer maybe hearing this for the first time, excited about helping this segment of population regain functionality and do all this literally life-changing endeavors, but they've never had any exposure to that segment of the population, and it doesn't seem like there's a good manual that they can just pick up and learn from a book as to what happens when, the diabetic client rolls in, the 81-year-old client, etc. Any lessons learned from your time in the trenches there, or pearls of wisdom to people who might be interested in starting to cater to that segment of society?
Yeah, for sure. Austin Begebing used to say in one of his lectures, it was really amazing. And it was kind of like a way to talk about intensity and how it should be dosed. And he's like, you got a can of tuna, you're going to put some mayonnaise in that tuna. If you put too much mayonnaise in the tuna, you can't take it out, right? You're done. So you just put a little bit at a time and you mix it up. A little bit at a time, you mix it up until it's money and it's where you want it to be. And I would say that's the same thing with any brand new person that walks into your gym. I tell them every day, like for that first few months, like, hey, I want you to leave here every day going, that's it? There's not more? And to leave going, I could have done way more. Why won't he let me do more? And slowly layer that on. Think about the movements that those people need to do in order to have functional and independent living. They got to sit down. They got to get back up. You need to pick things up off the ground and put them over their head. And if they fall down, can they get up off the ground? If you can get them to do those basic things with you in a very safe and fun environment, right? That's all that matters. And so that's like your starting point. And so can they get up if they fall? I mean, I would say 70% of the calls that we would go on as firefighters were lift assist, right? Because somebody had fallen down and couldn't get back up. And that was it. They literally just needed somebody to come over and help them. We go over there, put Bob back on the couch, and Bob, hey, Bob, do you want to go to the hospital? No. Okay, please sign this right here saying you don't want to go to the hospital. Okay, I'll see you in a couple of days because I'm probably going to come back and have to pick you back up again. And so I think about that with every single time that we're in the health classes. Is like, that's you tell a 70, 80, 90-year-old to do a burpee, right? And then you show them what a burpee is. And especially the baby boomer population, they give you a big middle finger and turn around and walk away and say, there's no way, son. Like, you don't understand how many surgeries and things I've been through and blah, blah, blah. And so you got to start slow and work your way up, but make sure that you're giving them the tools that they need to live an independent life, which is, can they sit down and get back up? Can they pick things up off the ground and put them over their head? And if they fall down, have you taught them how to get themselves back up?
Yeah, and you'll hear some crazy stories, and I had some limited exposure to that population as well. And if you ask somebody, hey, when's the last time you were down on the floor voluntarily and got back up? And they're like, I don't know, mid-90s. And you're like, oh, wow, like that's okay, but it's amazing, like you said, incrementally with some care and some common steps, common sense and some baby steps, just how far you can actually make it into progress. And suddenly this person, maybe with a hand on a box, like a slight assist, they get down into a lunge position, then one hand goes on the ground, and then they get onto the all prone, then they slowly get back up, and then you check back in 2 months later and the box is gone, and they're getting up and down on their what seemed to be literally impossible or science fiction months before. If they stick with it and they've got a trainer that cares, you can, you don't want to be exaggerate things, but to some degree you're saving their life. I mean, because if they become more durable in a fall, if they stop shuffling their feet when they walk, you're doing more good for that person than putting somebody's 470 pound deadlift to 485 pounds. I mean, you are impacting their life in a way that's tough to almost put into words. So I would wholeheartedly encourage anybody listening to this who's on the fence. I think it might be some of the most challenging, but some of the most rewarding training that you can do.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that if you do decide to start something like this, like, be ready for the first couple of months to be a lot of, side looks and you want me to do what, and this stuff isn't working and everything. But don't worry, there'll be a day where they walk in and they go, hey, you know what? Yesterday I was able to do X, Y, and Z, and I haven't been able to do that in 20 years. Thank you. And it'll happen. And right there and then, boom, you're hooked, and you don't want to do anything else.
Well, Wes, if you would, why don't you let people know how can they get a hold of you? What's your gym's website? What are you on Instagram in case somebody has a question or, just whatever?
Yeah. If anybody wants to talk about anything we talked about on this website or on this podcast, as far as, the coaches development stuff we do here, the health class, level 1 staff, any of that, please just email me, Wes at coastrangecrossfit.com. Instagram is Wes Piatt 2013, and we have also Coast Range CrossFit on Instagram too. So send me a message anywhere, and I'm available for you anytime.
Thanks, man. We appreciate your time.
You're the man, Wes. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. You guys are legends, and so just being asked to do this was an honor. So thank you guys.